Farrik!
Hello, and welcome to Dank Farrik, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Carlos, and I'm here with my co host.
Tyler Mendelson.
And today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back, aka one of the
The
greatest
greatest
movies.
movie
Oh,
in all the world.
you had to take it, didn't you? It's getting there. So, yeah, the greatest movie or the greatest sequel, or I guess whichever one.
Definitely
But-
the greatest sequel.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Godfather 2 has something to tell you, though.
You know, I'm not that big of a fan of Godfather 2 compared to the first one.
Well, that's a different podcast.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
But yeah, so today we're going to continue on our discussion from last episode where we talked about episode 4, New Hope, and we're going to talk a little bit about the behind the scenes facts, about how the production came to be, some fun trivia along the way, and some of the things we think about the movie, especially in relation to the rest of the movies and how they all interconnect and all of
Yeah.
that good stuff.
And this one is going to be a little bit more toned down from the behind the scenes stuff compared to episode 4, just because, you know, episode 4 was what started it all. We kind of had to give a lot more of an in-depth background of how Star Wars came to be. But with this, with Empire, you know, it's just a sequel, and we're able to move more swiftly into the actual movie discussion itself.
And speaking on moving swiftly, let's start it. So, right off the success of the first one, the Star Wars, Lucas was forced to. Well, he wasn't forced, but I mean, the first one made a lot of money, so you might as well make a sequel. And he had the sequel rights, as we discussed previously, the merchandising rights as well, which was a pretty penny, I'm sure. And he was tasked, rather, on making another one, but at the same time, he was burdened with creating, or rather solidifying, the position of his production company, Lucasfilm, in order for it to be like a smooth operation. So when it came to do another one, uh, he needed a different director because he couldn't take the directing duties himself. And he
Right.
would take a step back as a producer, or rather, he hoped that he would be kind of like a shotgun director. Is that a thing?
He wanted to be the creative head without having to actually be,
On
you
set,
know, in
directing every
charge
day.
of doing directing, because compared to like A New Hope, he just had the most production hell you could ever imagine and was stressed beyond belief, so he didn't want that anymore.
Yeah, and also this time around, he was actually self-financing the movie. So
Yes.
it's at this point probably like the biggest independent movie of all time. It's funny, people don't think about that, but Star Wars are mostly like independent movies. Like the
They
new
really
ones
are.
aren't,
I mean,
and the first one wasn't.
well, like we said in the previous episode, George Lucas is the epitome of the most famous and successful independent filmmaker there is. And, you know, it all spawned with the original Star Wars and his works previous to that. But even as Star Wars became immensely popular, they are still technically independent movies.
Yeah, and you don't think about
Just
that
crazy to think about. Yeah.
because they're all like huge blockbuster
Giant
movies.
tentpole blockbuster films, but they're actually independent films.
So he hated the studios, and he essentially became the thing he hated. It's very Darth Vadery. I think he's talked about how he becomes he kind of art imitates life, and the other way around, I guess. So yeah, so this time it was like out of his own pocket, which, you know, that's a huge investment, and he had to take huge loans from the bank, and that's a huge risk. And he needed a steady hand as a director, and he recruited one of his USC film teachers, Irvin Kershner, whom he had great faith in, and whom Irvin always thought Lucas was a really interesting pupil, and, you know, someone to look forward to his career.
Mm-hmm.
And so he offered it to Irvin Kershner, and originally Irvin Kershner apparently wasn't very keen on it. He was like apprehensive because you had to make a follow-up to the most successful film of all time. And
how do you follow up with Star Wars? You know, and up
Yeah.
until that point, sequels had never been. It wasn't really a thing, and if they weren't successful. They usually just fell flat on their feet. So he's like, "Why do I want to be the one to come in and destroy this thing?"
Yeah, And so he took some convincing, I think, but at the end, I think it's just too an irresistible proposition. Imagine if you get
You
that.
can't turn down the opportunity to direct a Star Wars movie.
I mean, even though it wasn't like still like as beloved as it is today, it was
Yeah.
still like it's the first one is great, and you got to make the second one. Come on.
Yep.
So he recruited a writer, a great writer, Lee Brackett. She was known as a great sci-fi writer at the time, and she started writing on a draft guided by Lucas, and unfortunately she died like as she was still in the writing process. And not only that, but the scheduling, the start of shoot was like starting to show up on the horizon, and they were already constructing sets and they didn't have a script. So a little fun trivia as well is George Lucas also made the Indiana Jones movies. I guess he produced them,
Yeah.
and he wanted to recruit this young screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan to write Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is the first Indiana Jones movie. And he recruited him, and to write Raiders, and he turned in a draft of Raiders, and George looked at it and was like, okay, very good, let's have lunch. This is a story that Lawrence Kasdan tells. Let's have lunch. So they go have lunch, and he's like, you know, I'm in big trouble because they're building sets in London, in England, and they don't have a script to shoot The Empire Strikes Back, and we have a really early draft. It's not finished. It's not done, and we have like a month to do it, a couple weeks. And Lawrence Kasdan was like, "Well, don't you want to read Raiders of the Lost Ark first to know if I'm the guy for it?" And he was like, "Well, I'll read it tonight, and if I don't like it, I'll I'll call you tomorrow to take back the offer." Which is amazing that he's just so cavalier about it. About like he didn't even see any of his writing before.
Are you gonna quote Lawrence Kasdan at all in this podcast? Yeah,
Well,
trust the characters, George.
yeah, he has a great Michigan
We always
accent.
used to say that when we were living in
Yeah,
LA.
but he said it to J.J. Abrams. That's a different.
Yeah, I know.
That's later. So Lawrence Kasdan starts writing, of course, with the guidance of your George and like a lot of story conferences, and things start coming together. They start hashing out a script. The bones of the story were still there from Lee Brackett's draft, but the minutia. The great thing about Lawrence Kasdan is always the crackling dialogue.
He's
It just
great at dialogue.
the snappy dialogue,
Yep.
and it's not forced, and it's not trying
The
to like.
comedy especially is just so on point, like the comedy of Empire is bar none. It's so good
But you know what's
that
great about it? Sorry,
what?
go ahead. I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say
No,
the
go
movie
ahead.
sustains a way darker tone than the first one, and it's still
But it's
just as charming
still,
and funny.
yes, exactly.
And it manages to balance those two things. And I think not only it's because of Irvin Kershner, of course, amazing directing, but the sophistication of it, the merging of the bubblegum fun little Flash Gordon aspect and the Wagner like opera of it.
Yeah,
That great match. It's in great part because of Lawrence Kasdan and Irvin Kershner,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
George was a great like godfather to it.
Hmm.
So they start shooting. The movie goes. Has some setbacks. They shoot in Norway. The snow scenes. Most of it is shot in England, and the movie was like it was hard to put together in terms of money. But we'll go through like different behind the scenes facts as we go through the movie itself,
Hmm.
because the movie comes out in 1980, 3 years later after the first one. And the movie starts. The first thing you see, Tyler, what is it? The first thing you see?
So you see it suddenly, you're sitting in the theater and you got your popcorn and the screen turns black and it says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars pops on the screen and then you see it says Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And people were probably very confused by that point.
Yeah, like
They're
what
like,
were the
"Wait, did
first?
I
Yeah,
miss, you know, all the previous films?" And no, George just wanted to. He knew that he had more of the story to tell, and he wanted to just be like, "This is the middle point. This is." gearing towards the end point of the story, and he knew he wanted to backtrack. So it's just interesting how people literally saw this in theaters and just had no idea like that he was going this route.
Yeah, but the weird thing also is so for people who don't know, the original A New Hope didn't have in the title crawl in the original version of the movie. The ones you see now today do have Episode 4 A New Hope. The
Yeah.
original one didn't. The
It just
original,
said
which is
Star
the
Wars
last,
and then went right to the scroll.
it was Star Wars, and then it is a period of civil war. Da 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 da. The
Yeah.
rest of this.
There wasn't an episode.
Yeah, that was added in the 80s. Actually, it was before
Yeah.
the special editions that he added Episode 4,
Yeah.
A New Hope. So this is the first time that you see the episode number in the crawl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and pan down, you see a Star Destroyer again, but it's not in the middle of a war. It's not in the middle of a battle.
In how many of the Star Wars films, though, does it start with a Star Destroyer?
It's just like, are you asking?
There's
me,
a
or do you
lot
know?
of them. I mean, I don't
Yeah, that's
know
kind of like a tradition.
specific. I'd have to think about it, and I could probably give the right answer, but it would
Episode
probably
4, 5, 6, 7. Episode 3 as well is in the first shot of the movie. Several Star Destroyers.
Yeah, I mean they were,
They were Star Destroyers.
Yeah, but
it doesn't matter if it's Imperial or not. Anyways, we digress.
This is like the ultra nerd talk that we're getting into, so we apologize.
It was actually a Republic Star Destroyer. I was gonna say Republican. This is a different conversation. Yeah. So yeah, we start the movie. We pan down. What do we see, Tyler?
Well, we see they are launching Imperial probe droids, and one lands on Hoth, the ice planet, and Luke Skywalker is riding around on his Tauntaun, which is a weird sort of creature. Yeah.
Stop motion.
It still looks good to this day. Honestly, I like that retro 80s look to it. Like it's never bothered me.
No, me neither. I mean, no, even as a kid, like you could tell, like A New Hope, it was very like cobbled together. But Empire, you could tell the production values went straight up.
Went up, yeah.
And that's something you can realize it right out of the gate.
Exactly.
Because it looks just so good.
Yep. So, long story short, Luke ends up getting whomped by a wampa.
Oh, he gets
and a wampa is basically an abominable snowman. But the really interesting thing with this is they basically wrote this in because Mark Hamill got into a car accident and he had like a pretty bad facial, there's scarring and he had stitches and
he went under like face reconstruction.
Yeah, he had facial reconstruction, and they basically were like freaking out, like, what do we do? And then they figured out a way to write it into the movie
to justify him looking a little bit different. I mean, it still looks like him, but you could tell
he got beat up.
That he got a little beat up, like the nose particularly. But
I like how they didn't pull some kind of like cheap move with it. Like they started out right from the gate with him just getting attacked by like a giant ice creature. It's creepy, it's cool. Right, and we see Luke use the Force. I mean, like physically use the Force for the first time, not shooting missiles down into the Death Star, but actually using the Force to lift the lightsaber out of the snow.
Also, fun fact: this is the first time in Star Wars we see the Force pool. Like the closest thing we've seen in A New Hope is Vader choking Mahdi, that official. But this is the first time we've seen like somebody levitate stuff with the Force.
Yeah,
it didn't happen in the first one, and it's now something we think about the Force as like we take it for granted. As something that you can do with the Force.
We also know what Star Wars and the Force is by this point. Like even people who haven't seen Star Wars know like what Force powers are.
Yeah.
But you got to think watching Empire for the first time, especially back in the 1980s, where like you've only seen A New Hope. Now you come in, you're like, holy shit! Like they're able to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
I mean. It keeps adding to the glossary of powers.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
Yep. So that's something we start to see in more of the films, not just this one, but we'll definitely get into that later because I have quite a few comments on some of the powers we end up seeing.
I love all the, like, one of the things I will tell you, even in the new Disney ones, I love how they keep adding new powers because I feel like they kind of make sense, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to it. All right, so something else that was cool with the Wampa, if you go into the deleted scenes, like I know on Disney Plus, I believe they have them on there.
Mhm.
There was a deleted scene where C3PO and R2D2 are basically tricking the snowtroopers into getting attacked by Wampas that were sort of like being held off inside the rebel base. They were sort of like locked into the walls, and there's like a few scenes with them where like you see like the
Yeah,
Wampas just like reaching
it
through the
was
wall trying to like get to them.
it was like a whole subplot for the first act
Yeah,
where
they
like
were they
the
were trying to
Wampa's
make an
coming in.
actual like a big Wampa attack on the
Yeah,
base.
and makes total sense why they cut it
Yeah, it just
because
didn't fit. It didn't fit at all.
you
The
kind of try to
story.
make that like that horror aspect, of like giving pressure to the like, oh my god, are they gonna get attacked by monsters? But the Empire is coming, so you can't get any bigger
They didn't
monsters than
need,
them.
yeah, they didn't need any more pressure for the
Hmm.
characters or like where they were at, the story or whatever. It propelled right into it
Yeah.
immediately. It is very fast paced, but like in the most perfect way.
Hmm.
It doesn't
Exactly.
feel rushed. It's just perfectly moving along very quickly.
Yeah. And we get also Han going to rescue Luke.
You know, it really goes to show this is like the second time now that Han is clearly more selfless than he puts on.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
He
He's the good guy.
decides to put his friends above himself. The lines he has are so good when he asks if any he's like where's Commander Skywalker? They're like nobody's seen him. He's like, what do you mean no one?
Yeah. We'll
It's
go and
getting
find
dark
out.
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the
And he
best one is,
just
I'll see you in hell. Ha!
yeah, he literally gets on a tauntaun and they're like, your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker. Then I'll see you in hell. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Also, what is
he just
hell?
becomes Indiana Jones. Yeah,
I also wonder.
is there a hell in Star Wars? Apparently so.
Mustafar. I guess Mustafar is the closest we've gotten to hell in Star Wars.
I mean,
And
that's the metaphorical hell,
exactly, for sure.
but yeah. But
And yeah, the
at
dark
least
side
for
as well.
this, maybe hell is just a phrase.
Yeah, I mean it's fine.
Who
It's
knows?
just it's just a goofy space adventure.
It's just hilarious how they wrote "I'll see you in hell" in Star
Yeah,
Wars.
yeah. But also they bring it back in other
I've heard
stuff.
it a few times.
In the Force Awakens, it was
Yeah,
there. And
yeah.
well, anyways. But yeah, so he goes to save Luke. Luke has a vision of Ben Kenobi, telling him that that Luke must go to Dagobah
Why
to.
does he still call him Ben?
Wait, why
I've
why
always
wouldn't he?
He knows he's Obi-Wan. Why would he still call him Ben?
Yeah, but even Ben, like when he found out that like when he told him, like, do you know Obi-Wan in the first one? And
Yeah.
he's like, he has that weird look in his face, which doesn't really
Obi-Wan
make sense with the
Kenobi.
prequels, but fine.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he was just full of shit. But he was like, like he
And he just
or
lied
he
about
went
R2.
extremely senile. We don't know which one, but he was like, I haven't heard that name. Like it might be that he's senile now that I think about it.
I don't think he's not fucking senile.
He's just like
He's
an
just an
old
asshole.
dude in his pajamas going
He's just an
around like,
asshole.
let's go, kid. You know the Force. Let's defeat evil. But yeah, so he appears to him in the snow, which is an amazing scene because you get the Force theme,
And
and
it's the
also
first visible Force ghost.
yeah, exactly. It's the first time you see Alec Guinness as a Force ghost. In the first one, you only
We
heard his
heard
voice.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's also kind of cool because the more powerful Luke becomes with the Force, the more clearer he can see the Obi-Wan as a Force ghost. Like if you think about it, you can only hear his voice in A New Hope. After he like pulls the lightsaber, he can see the shape of his ghost, and later in Dagobah he can see him a little bit clearer because he has gone through training. And in Return of the
I would
Jedi, he's like
challenge
sitting on a log.
I would all right, hold on. I would challenge that statement just
Yeah,
because I think he was he wasn't that clear in Hoth just because of the blizzard. Like I think they wanted it to they wanted to blend him in with the blizzard to make it like more mysterious and creepy and like
I mean, yeah, I guess
dramatic.
it
But
doesn't.
for Dagobah, it wouldn't really make sense. And by that point, they're like, "Fuck it, like let's just have Ghost's bed
I think
sit
it
on a
works both
log." And
ways. I think it might have worked as like a production, like a cinematic production thing. Like the yellow eyes,
yeah,
the Sith yellow eyes.
yeah,
What are they about? Like it's really just a cinematic
yeah.
representation.
Hmm.
So I think it works as a storytelling. Like if you see it that way, or as just
Yeah,
like we had to make it
yeah,
transparent because that's the tech we had available.
yeah. But either way, like it works
Hmm.
towards the story's benefit because it
Exactly.
lets people interpret it differently,
And it's the first time we hear the name Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed me.
which is a little problematic. Because
Yeah,
I
well,
mean, Yoda technically did train Obi-Wan
all the
per se.
younglings.
He
Yeah,
trained the younglings, but he also trained Obi-Wan to
let yeah.
communicate with Qui-Gon in the netherworld of the Force.
So we get to, Luke's gets healed in a back to
Acta
tank
tank.
with a doll diaper, and so he has to he has this scene when Luke and Leia kiss after. So Han is so
uh,
okay. Yeah, we're getting to that. I mean, we have to. It's part of the fairy tale, dude.
can I at least just say that the dialogue in that scene was perfect, just
Everything in
masterful,
Empire is
just
perfect.
fucking masterful. It's so witty and funny and just like
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. I don't dislike the kiss, honestly, because they didn't know.
but
I
it
mean,
also makes sense. Like she's trying to make Han jealous. That's the whole point of it.
yeah, it's all in character. Like there's no it isn't like a cringe moment because it's out of character. It's a cringe moment because what you know
But
afterwards.
because what you know afterwards, yeah.
So I don't blame it on the movie because the
And
movie executed it to perfection.
not just that, but Luke is also very um coy about it. Like he
No, he's
puts
into
his
it.
hands behind
Yeah,
his
no,
head.
he's
Is just
into
like
it.
he's like, oh yes,
By the way, we're talking about this because they're brother and sister. Just wanted to make that clear.
Alabama.
Yeah, they went all Alabama on it. And you could tell also, like the great thing that I think people talk about enough in that scene, because everyone talks about the kiss, is that you could tell Han was actually bothered by it. He he
Yeah,
wasn't like he wasn't like just like whatever to him. He was like, take it easy, you know. He was like, I don't love that, even though he tries to pretend that he doesn't care about anything or anyone.
right.
But so we get that, then we slowly start pulling into the Empire side of the story. We have the subplot with the probe droid. They get to hear the probe droid being around. Han and Chewie go investigate. Yeah. Han and Chewie go investigate, and they are like, "Oh my god, the Empire is coming!" Like they could tell the Empire was coming, and we get dun 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 dun. Dun. Hopefully, we don't get sued
Yes.
by humming it or whatever. Uh, but we get this is the first time we hear the Imperial March.
Imperial March. It
Oh
is
my god,
so glorious.
some of the most iconic music ever
Thank
of
fucking
of any
God
movie
for
and of
John
Star Wars,
Williams.
and it's not even
Thank
in the first movie.
God for John Williams.
Dude, John Williams is the man.
He's he's fucking legend, man. I'm
I think
going
this
to
podcast is
weep
gonna
when
turn
he
into
dies.
yeah. This podcast is gonna be that's morbid as fuck. The podcast, I mean, he's up there, so I get
He's
it.
pretty old, yeah.
The podcast is just gonna be us blowing John Williams because he really
It basically has been for the past
carries.
2 or 3 fucking
Yeah.
episodes.
So we get the great soundtrack, and we see one of the greatest intros to a villain. And it's not like oh my god, I'm gonna kill a whole hallway of people type intro for a villain. It's just so subdued, and it's so cool because you see him looking into the stars, then he walks back to his communications
Yeah.
officers, and you don't see his face. You just see people looking at him with
Hmm.
fear, like people under him. So you can tell like the storytelling, visual storytelling is
That
so
first
weird.
shot where it's just like the stars and he's looking out the window and it's
Hmm.
just the back of his helmet is just oh, it's
Yeah,
just so perfectly framed.
yeah,
And the shine, they really
mm-hmm.
outdid themselves with like the Vader costume
Yeah. They
compared to A
clearly
New
had more
Hope.
money. Yeah,
Yeah, because the old costume didn't have that shine that it does in Empire and Return of the Jedi,
yeah,
and it really makes a difference for
yeah,
the character and for the villainous mystique about him.
And as it was stated in the crawl, he's obsessed, as the crawl put it,
Finding Luke.
obsessed with defending young Skywalker.
Yeah.
And it's the first thing he was like, "Oh my god, that's the
The
rule. That's we need
rebels
to know
are
it.
there.
The rebels are there." And it's like it could be anything, Lord Vader. He's like, "No, fuck you. We're going. Let's
Yeah.
go." And he just goes with his business. And there's no debate. He just knows it.
Right.
So the Empire goes to Hoth. Everything goes to shit. The Battle of Hoth is in swing. Also, how ballsy is it to have like the big climax? In the first one, the big climax, the big space battle is in the front end of the movie this time. Like the
Yeah.
big climactic space battle, space quote unquote, between the good guys and bad guys. This is the beginning of the
It was
movie.
a planet battle, but
Yeah,
I
but you know what I
guess
mean, like
everything is in space.
the big set spectacle,
Yeah.
ship on ship dogfight
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's in the at the beginning of the movie,
Yeah.
and it's great. And you could tell also like the production was way better in this side of the, because you get the Imperial Walkers and they're just glorious.
I even as it like growing up as a kid, I will tell you every winter when it would snow, I would
Mhm.
go out in my yard in the snow and pretend to be fighting on Hoth. Like it was that iconic and special to me.
Yeah,
And just I loved every second of the AT-ATs and just, the idea of a giant snow battle. It was just the coolest image, and I had the Lego sets and everything. Just that is easily my most iconic and
mm.
favorite battle in all of Star Wars, hands down. There's no question. And even to this day, the AT-ATs, that one profile shot, like the side shot of them
Hmm.
walking and shooting and the snow speeders going by, it looks so fucking good.
No, it holds up.
It holds up, but it's stop motion. Like
Yeah,
it's just incredible how good it looks.
you know, one shot that freaked me out as a kid is that
What?
shot when so he gets shot down. Luke gets shot down. Dak dies,
Yeah.
and he's trying to get out of the ship, and the leg of the AT-AT is coming up into the ship. You know, it's
Right.
gonna crush
Yeah.
the ship. It's gonna step on it,
Hmm.
and he goes back to get the grappling gun. But as
Right.
a
Yeah.
kid, I always thought he went back to get the Dak's corpse,
Get
or
Dak.
hoping he was still alive. And I was like, "There's no time, dude. Leave him." And he just gets
Leave
the
him,
grappling
but we'll
gun.
never make it.
Leave him, or we'll never make it. And then he jumps out of the ship just as the leg is crushed. Like that idea of the leg of this
Yeah.
giant mechanical elephant crushing Luke
And
terrified me as a
the
kid.
sound effects were great. That
Oh yeah, yeah. Also, my first exposure, because I told you I saw the prequels first. My first exposure to the Battle of Hoth, and actually to most of the original trilogy's space fights, was through the game Rogue Squadron 2. So I remember in the game you had to do the tow cables
Yep.
around the legs.
Yep.
And when I was watching the movie, I was like, just use the tow cable, because I already knew it from the game. And I remember it took me a long
You
while in the
cheated.
game to figure it out.
You cheated.
I didn't cheat. I was a kid.
You cheat. You cheat, Dr. Jones.
Oh my god, don't do that.
Now this is an Indiana Jones podcast, by the way.
Yeah, it could be. Okay, so iconic moments of the Battle of Hoth. Vader coming into the base. That's
Oh
great
yeah.
shit.
I love how he's just like so adamant about like he's so fearless and just so willing to just like walk into the fucking base and just go after whatever he wants,
And he's just striding, you know.
Yeah,
There's
he
no
doesn't
run.
run. He
No.
doesn't even walk. He's just walking.
He's just walking with a great entourage and soundtrack. He doesn't need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see him like go through like the security checkpoint when he goes through like a little thing, and it looks like a security checkpoint at the airport. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I thought that was kind of cool. Where he's
Yep.
like, he doesn't even need to go through the security checkpoint. He's so fucking cool. I don't even know if that's a security checkpoint. To me as a kid, it looked like it. But so he arrives, and that like little cat and mouse thing where you cut to Vader going to look for them, and then we got to the heroes running, and C-3PO is being super
And
slow.
C-3PO is always like behind, and
I
Han
remember,
is like, "You're gonna be a permanent resident."
Yeah, and as a kid, I was like, C-3PO, move the fuck along. because he was always so slow in that movie. I love Tripio, by the way. I'm not shitting on Tripio.
He's great.
He's a necessary, great relief, comic relief.
Yes.
And also love that little moment when Han turns on the Falcon and it's not coming on, and so he has to hit the
Well, that's what 90% of this movie is the Falcon not
the
working the way
car
it's
not
supposed
working.
to, and it's just so brilliant how much drama and like chaos can happen just from that aspect of it, like them trying to fix the Millennium Falcon while they're getting chased.
Yeah, imagine it as like a straight movie. It would be like some dude going to the desert with some like new age guru, and some other dudes like going like running away from the cops and the car not working. That's kind of like how it'd be if it was like not Star Wars. And
Basically.
it's great because a lot of comedy comes from the car not working.
Yeah.
So we get there and they escape at last, even though it was like a very tense moment. And Luke goes to Dagobah.
Hold on. Before we get into Dagobah,
Hmm.
we missed a few things beforehand,
Okay.
which I love the aspect that we start to see into the perspectives of the Imperial officers. And we see this sort of like internal struggle of failure and trying to like I want to know who on Earth, not literally Earth, but who
On
in
the
the Star Wars
galaxy.
universe
Yeah.
would actually want to be an Imperial officer, because the higher rank you get, the more chance Vader or the Emperor is just going to kill you for failing.
Yeah, that's true. But also,
They
so
all just look at it like this impending doom, like
a lot of the guy or a lot of those guys look like they're in like their 40s or 50s. Like they were really like if you look at it, they were probably a
they're
Republic
probably in the
officers
Republic, yeah.
before the Republic
Yeah,
became
most of
the
them
Empire.
were.
So I think it was just like a thing of they were career officers.
Of course they continued it, but at the same time it's like holy shit, now it's like I do my job, and
Yeah,
whether it's my fault or not, if the failure is on me, I'm going to die.
one of the worst jobs that where you could get a promotion because it just gets you closer to Vader's grip.
Vader, Vader, literally his grip.
Which also Vader has some great comedic moments where he chokes people and he's like apology accepted. That's just gold. Every time I watch it, I'm like, that's funny.
He's full of the dad jokes before
Yeah,
we even knew he's the father.
before we knew he was the father. But yeah, so Dagobah, we get to Dagobah. We ready for Dagobah?
Yes.
Okay, we get to Dagobah, and it's just a swamp, and it doesn't make sense for Ben to send him there because Luke is super frustrated about how there's nothing there. It's just a bog, and you know he starts setting up camp, and a little creature shows up. Now,
Hold on.
yeah,
Time out.
okay,
One thing that, you know, it's always this moment, like when Luke is getting to, when he's landing on Dagobah, that
Mhm.
always reminds me of this one issue that I've always had with Star Wars, that is like something you don't think about often until you start like really nitpicking shit. Like
Mhm.
obviously for like movie sake, things make sense, but when you really think about it, the biggest problem for me with Star Wars is like how all right, they get told information like, okay, for instance, Luke is told to go to Dagobah to find Yoda.
Mhm.
Obi-Wan is told to go to Camino to find the cloners, blah blah
Mhm.
blah blah blah, and so on and so on. How do they know exactly where on the planet to go? They always show up right exactly where they need to be.
It's the Force.
It's no. That's a cop out
It's the
answer.
will of the Force, dude. Everything that's
Uh,
unexplainable in Star Wars or is convenient,
and
it's the will
that's
of the
such a
Force.
convenient answer. I'm just look.
Well,
I
it's
know
fucking
it's
Star
just the
Wars.
movies, and look, I'm just being a fucking nitpicking bastard.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like in the back of my mind, that thought is there. It's
I would get
like
that.
I
Yeah,
want
I
an
understand.
explanation.
I
You
I
know?
would get that if it was like a hard drama, like where it's like a super dark drama about like real people in a
Yeah.
real world.
I
But
know it. The answer
but the
isn't
tone,
necessarily important. It's
yeah,
just like one of those things. If you've enjoyed Star Wars as much as us, and you watch these movies over and over, eventually you're going to come to this kind of thinking, you know?
Yeah. Also, like if you want to get deep into it, why did the if the rebels escaped Hoth and Luke escaped Hoth unscathed,
Yeah,
why
where was the Imperial fleet?
why was the Millennium Falcon only? Why was the Imperials only chasing the Millennium Falcon? Like they didn't get scot free. But
But
where was the Imperial fleet
when
when
you
Luke
see
was?
Luke's
Yeah.
X-wing fly off that planet, there is no one else around. Where did all the there was the entire Imperial fleet just went after the Millennium Falcon? There's no way.
Yeah. And so where were they?
I don't know.
But you know what? It doesn't matter
It
because
doesn't matter, I
it's
guess.
cool.
It's cool.
It's cool.
Because
Uh,
movies.
because movies. I mean, yeah. I mean, the tone and theme and story of Star Wars, I think, lends itself to those type of conveniences. We just gotta go with it
It's
because it's
like
an adventure
very,
story.
very minor plot holes.
Yeah, but plot holes are in every movie.
Yes.
So yeah,
Almost
but I
every
get
movie.
it. I get it.
Yeah,
What do you mean? Almost any movie, really?
that's
Like,
not true.
okay, we'll get to that. Uh, Yoda shows up. Well, I think at first we don't know it's Yoda. At first we just think it's a little green creature. But if you know anything
Looking,
about pop
found
culture,
someone you have, I'd say.
yeah, exactly, amazing. I love it. And it's goofy Yoda because he's trying Luke's patience to see if he
Yep.
holds, and he doesn't, of course.
He will learn patience.
He will learn. But we get Yoda being goofy and doing his crazy ketamine Yoda shit.
Ketamine,
Yeah,
ketamine, frog on ketamine.
ketamine frog and ketamine. He starts fighting with R2 with his cane. Mine,
Mine,
mine.
mine, mine.
Yeah, for the light. Also, they know each other. If we want to get technical,
Yeah, they
another
do.
plot hole if you want to indulge. And he tries to get his food, which I always love that little thing when he's trying to eat his food and he doesn't really take a bite because it's a puppet. And
Speaking of the puppet,
yeah,
it's such a relief for all of the things that
the puppet
Empire
is a
gave
relief.
us, for the puppet to have worked so well, and I don't think it could have worked in a single other way, especially for the time the movie was made. Just the way they filmed Yoda was so innocent and genuine, and like the puppet looked great. It could have been a massive failure with the because it was basically an experimental puppet. You know, they were barely ready to get this thing going with Frank Oz.
Yeah,
Um,
but
but
also
it's it just works so well.
the puppet makes like it makes sense when you watch the goofy shit. Like, oh, it's a goofy puppet. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then he starts talking seriously when you realize that it's actually Yoda, and he
Yeah.
started like laying down the truth, and he's
Mhm.
like, "You will be," when he says, "I'm not afraid," you will be, and you
Mhm.
start seeing him like serious acting from Yoda,
Yeah.
and the puppet holds like the puppet sells that shit so
Yep.
hard. And
Yeah.
the thing I feel that sells Yoda's puppet is not so much I mean, the puppet is great, but it's the fact that
The
Mark Hamill.
voice
No, I was gonna say the fact that Mark Hamill reacted to the puppet as if he was talking to a real actor. Like the interaction between actor and actor
felt
uh,
very natural.
felt very
Yeah.
natural. And if
Yeah.
Mark Hamill had acted as like with a winking at the camera a little bit over the fact that he was acting against a puppet,
Right.
like I feel like a lot of the performance from the puppet, a lot of the heavy lifting is done by Mark Hamill being natural towards it and like
Yep.
interacting with it in a
Mark Hamill
natural way.
actually had a tough time with this because I can't remember how many weeks it was, but it was just him working with a puppet for a long time. I
A
think it was
good
like
chunk.
3 or
Yeah.
4 weeks at least.
Yeah.
And you had the Yoda performers. I think there was 3 of them underneath like the floorboards and stuff doing all of this little, the little
Yeah.
motions. And he's just solely going off of this puppet. And it's just crazy how well it turned out.
Yeah. And Yoda is there laying down through some of the greatest lines ever written, I think, for like a guru mentor type character in movies.
Of
Uh,
all the things of Star Wars, not even just Empire, but of all the great things about Star Wars, I would say how the things it teaches us
mhm.
and the things that stick with us. And Yoda's lessons and his quotes from this movie are just what makes Star Wars, and what gives us that wonder, and the many life lessons that it brings. It has inspired so many people in so many different ways. And I was watching snippets from um the last
Yeah, Jedi.
postseason
Oh,
NFL games. No.
okay. Uh-huh.
The most recent playoff games for the NFL. They did,
Okay.
they mic'd the players up.
Hmm.
And I was literally watching this today, and one of the players, can't remember which team because they were showing all different teams. One of the players says, like a wise man once said, "Do or do not, there is no try." It's like
Yeah.
this stuff sticks with people.
Yeah.
He might have not even known that that quote came from Yoda or not, but it still sticks with people. The lessons that we learn from this.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines in all of Star Wars and of this movie, certainly, and of Yoda's, is when Yoda lifts up the X-wing, which is just a great cinematic moment,
Yeah,
and then Luke goes up to him and he says, "I don't believe it," and
I
Yoda
can't believe it.
answers,
That is why you
"That
fail.
is why you fail." That's
Yep.
the thing that I saw as a kid and I didn't really understand. Like, why did
Hmm.
he respond that? And I want to
Yep.
watch it now. Is like that. Like the reason why you fail is because you don't believe.
You don't believe in yourself.
You don't believe in general. You're just not a believer. And if you're not
Yep.
a believer, you're not gonna succeed.
Hmm.
And I love that idea because it goes like you could talk about like, oh, he's talking about like a imaginary force religion thing, but he's just
Yeah.
talking about life,
Yep.
and it's so powerful.
For me, I would say Yoda's quotes about like life and death
Hmm.
are the hardest hitting important lessons for me, just in dealing with loss. Um feel it like it makes me feel better about my life, and the people I lose and stuff like that, by Yoda saying like, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter, and
Hmm.
all the different things that he says about like um death is a natural part of life and all this kind of stuff. I know that wasn't an Empire, but
Hmm.
you know these kind of lessons that he brings up in the multiple Star Wars movies just
Yeah.
makes me feel like it's okay to not be in control of your own fate or your loved one's fates,
Yeah.
to know that there's something there, like they'll always be there,
Yeah. To surrender to the current, because
yes.
there are things you can't control,
Yeah.
and you can't be that person who's like trying to control every aspect because that
Yep.
leads to the dark side.
Hmm.
Um. So meanwhile, while they're having that like great ayahuasca spirit trip, uh, the the other heroes are on the other side of space having a
Having a
great
bad time.
time. Great bad time for them, great time for the audience.
Yeah.
Where the car is breaking down and they have to go through um, an asteroid field, and it's one of the great iconic sequences when the Falcon is like going all the way through it. Also, that little moment when Han's trying to fix shit, bring me the hydro spanner,
Yeah.
and the Falcon bumps and something hits him in the head, and
Yep.
he's like, "Ow, Chewie!"
The
Before they
toolbox
reveal,
comes
yeah.
down and hits him in the head.
So that's right before they reveal the asteroids. And when he sees the asteroid, he's like, "Oh, great,
Hey Carlos,
yes."
what are the odds of successfully navigating an asteroid field?
Oh fuck. 7,
Nope.
5,
Nope.
3,720 to 1.
There you
There we
go.
go. There
Yeah.
you go. I knew it, of course. I was just giving you like, yeah. Trying to
Speaking
make you
of
feel better.
3PO,
Hmm.
and it's hilarious. One of the great things about this movie is how much of an asshole Han is to 3PO.
Yeah.
3PO
Yeah.
is just trying to help. He's trying to like, do the right thing. And Han is just constantly like threatening to turn him off. And
Yeah.
he's like, plug the professor into the fucking
Yeah.
um
But also, I love the fact there's this little moment when when Tribute tells Han when they're like inside the asteroid. He tells Han like it seems your ship speaks the most peculiar dialect. Like I'm
Yes.
not sure what he's saying, but I think you should change this and this and that. And he's like, well, of course I have to replace it.
Yeah.
But he's just being shitty to him. And then when he looks at Chewie, he's like, I think you should replace so and
Yeah.
so. Like
He like whispers
he
it.
doesn't want to give him credit.
And then you see 3PO turn around and look at him. Yeah.
Yeah, because he kind of knew. But also C3PO is annoying as fuck to be fair. Like they are kissing, the great kiss where the music, John Williams music swells up, great build up to it when they're
Hmm.
like whispering to each other, you like me because I'm a scoundrel. And then 3PO shows up and he's like, sir.
But
Like, oh,
if you go back and watch that scene, like I watched it a few days ago, and
the kissing scene?
yeah,
Hmm.
it might seem romantic. Maybe it seemed romantic at the time. If you go back and watch that scene now,
Yeah.
the Me Too movement might want to have a word. Han is a little pushy, and
Yeah. Yeah,
it,
for
I'm
sure.
I'm not I'm not saying one way or another whether yeah, I still
Right.
think it's like romantic, and like obviously they had that connection. So, but
Well,
like
they do. Yeah.
the
I
way the
mean,
way it would come across in a modern day movie would be very different.
it wouldn't be portrayed like that today for sure.
Yeah.
Like in that movie, I think the idea was she clearly likes him, as you can tell from like everything they built up in the movie.
Yeah.
And also there was a deleted portion that wasn't in the movie when
Which one?
she's about like he's coming in onto her and he's like, you like me because I'm a scoundrel. And she's like, I happen to like nice men. And there's a moment when she tells him like, all right, hotshot, and she grabs his face and kisses him.
In
So
that scene?
in that scene, there's like
Uh
an uncut version of that scene that isn't in the movie,
I
where
like the way it was.
yeah, where she actually takes some agency, which we kind of see like the Leia from the first movie be a little bit more. But I also like the fact, yeah, I like the way it is, and
Because
she's
that's
clearly
just
vulnerable in a way that she hasn't been earlier. Like
exactly.
she's always bossy, she's always trying to like tell people what to do
Hmm.
because she knows she has a big mission, and she's like she's trying to wrangle all these idiots. So it makes sense for her to have that attitude, but this is the moment when he kind of tells her or telegraphs to her that you could be vulnerable with me. You don't need to be like that.
I
And they
just love
both kind
when
of
she
meet there in the
says,
middle.
"I happen to like nice men," and he goes, "I'm nice men."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's the nice guy. Yeah. Uh, and we cut back to the Empire at some point, and one of the Imperial officers tells Vader that the Emperor wants to contact him.
Yep.
And we get that scene, the first time we've seen the Emperor ever. We've heard of him in A New Hope very, very briefly, a couple times. I think I remember one. I don't remember a second time he's mentioned. And so we see Vader kneel, and we're like, "What? Vader kneels to somebody?" It's one of those moments where you're like, "Fuck!" And then the hologram pops up, and it's the Emperor. Now, the version of the movie you've seen nowadays clearly is a revised version because it has the actor from the rest of the movies that plays the Emperor,
Ian McDormand.
Ian McDermott. Yes,
Yeah.
and he looks the way he looked in Revenge of the Sith because they shot it. They shot
Yep.
that portion at that time,
Hmm.
and the dialogue is a little bit different than the new version.
Very,
Whereas
very similar.
very similar, but a little bit different because he mentions Anakin by name, and there's the Vader clearly lies in the new version, whereas he kind of pretends that he didn't know Luke was Vader's son or Anakin's son rather. He's
He
like,
didn't
how is that
mention
possible?
Anakin by name.
He did. I have no doubt.
The old one?
No, 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 the new one.
No, he says the son of Skywalker was must not become a Jedi.
In the
He
old
doesn't
one.
say no in the new one.
In the new one as well. But before that, he says, uh, I have
He
no doubt that this boy is the offspring of Anakin
Oh
Skywalker.
yeah, right.
And Vader says, how is
My
that
apologies.
possible?
Yeah. Right.
And so he's like, how is that possible? Even though he already
Right.
knew, and
Yep.
we know from canon, Vader already knew.
Right.
But in the old one, he never mentions Anakin.
Hmm.
And they don't have that little exchange where Vader has to pretend to lie. Um, in the old one, also, it wasn't Ian McDermott because Ian McDermott hadn't been cast until Return of the Jedi. It was actually a woman called Marjorie Eaton. I don't
I
know how to pronounce
suggest
it.
if you haven't seen the original, go on YouTube and look it up because it's very strange.
Yeah, because it's a
And I
woman.
actually had no idea that it was a woman playing the emperor, like
Yeah,
the physical form of the emperor.
it's a woman playing the physical form of the emperor, but she has like a weird.
Chimpanzee eyeballs.
Yeah, she has like chimpanzee eyeball, like a vice or something in her head to like make her up. And it's the voice of Clive Revel, who's like a well-known voice actor.
Right.
So he kind of sounds like a guy who would like in the original version of Empire, the Emperor sounds like he's reading an audiobook.
Yeah.
And in the new version, it's good old Sheev, you know. So that's a little bit of trivia. If you want to see the previous version, I suggest you do look at
Definitely go
it.
check it out. It's pretty trippy.
Yeah. So among the things, we get back to Dagobah to see Luke training, and one of the great moments also is when he senses the darkness in this little patch of the swamp.
Hmm.
He's like, "What's in there?" It's like that
Only
place
what you
is
take with you.
yeah, only what you take with you. That place is
Great line.
surrounded by the dark side. Yeah, and also great moment when he's like, "What's in there? Only what you take with you." And then he puts on his belt that
Better
has
weapons.
his
You will not
weapons,
need them.
and he puts them on. He doesn't care. He goes with his weapons,
Hmm.
which shows you that he's not a Jedi yet, because a Jedi is not an aggressive person. He doesn't come with the weapons. He's coming with a pretty disposition, whereas he knows he's gonna get conflict,
He said
and
he's not afraid, but he's clearly afraid.
he's clearly afraid. So he gets into the cave, and this cave is trippy because if you look at it from like a Campbellian or Carl Jung type of way, there's a moment in the hero's journey when the hero's faces goes to the depth of the well of their soul, their
Hmm.
whatever you want to say of their journey, their darkest spot in
Their
their cells.
internal conflict, basically.
Exactly. And they have to face it, and often what they face is themselves because they see themselves, they see a reflection of themselves. So when
Hmm.
Luke goes down there to the cave, the thing he sees is Vader. He has this little exchange with Vader where he cuts off his head, and when Vader's face's mask is
Mask
blown
blows up.
away,
Yep.
you can see the face of Luke, and you can tell the greatest fear that Luke has is to become Vader, is to
It's not
become
even
that guy.
just his fear, it is just straight up the foreshadowing of what could become.
Hmm. And he's confused. He doesn't even know why,
Yeah.
and it's all obviously because it's his father.
The
It's
fate of his father could very well become the fate of him
yeah,
if he goes down a certain path, if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do.
yeah, but it's great because you don't know that when you see the movie necessarily that it's
Hmm.
his father. I mean, most people will probably know, but if you take it as it is, the movie like telegraphs the twist before it happens.
Exactly.
But even then, it's not like telegraphed enough that you can easily guess it.
Hmm.
You know. So we get that moment in the cave, which is a great like hero's journey moment, which happens in a lot of movies. Hero's journey, you gotta look out for the cave moment where the heroes see themselves in their
Yeah.
worst. And then we go back to the other heroes, and we get uh, Darth Vader trying to hire bounty hunters. We don't need their scum to get the Falcon. And we see, what do we see, Tyler?
Well, Carlos, what we see is the greatest bounty hunter of all time,
Hmm.
Boba Fett, my favorite character in all of Star Wars.
Right.
And the best thing about Boba Fett, at least in Empire, that we get this sense of him right away, not just from the cool looking armor or the mystique, but the respect that Vader has for him, which is rare. And
You,
he literally has to warn him, no disintegrations.
I mean, do you think it's respect though? Is respect the right word?
I think he does have a respect for him.
Because I always thought it was a funny line. No disintegrations just implies that there's a history there where this guy just likes to
So
disintegrate people.
so listen, here's my theory with that.
Uh,
I think that Boba Fett was the one who melted Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen.
Oh God.
Because stormtroopers don't just go fucking melting people into skeletons. Boba Fett has a flamethrower and was actively helping the Empire. So, is it not possible that while he was on
I
Tatooine,
mean, I
he
guess
was
it's
helping them
stretched
try to
though.
track down the droids, right?
Well, he was with Jabba in Tatooine in that period of time. So I don't think he was working for the Empire. I think he was just chilling in Jabba's palace.
But he could have still been helping the Empire. I think it's a great theory just based on
Okay.
the foreknowledge of, the rest of Star Wars, but it's semantics. I think it's just
Yeah.
cool that
Well,
he
it
has a
was clearly
history,
told in
clearly.
the movie that the stormtroopers were the ones who were tracking down the droids.
Yeah.
So the implication is definitely that it's the droids. I mean, maybe they could retcon it into being Boba, but I don't see the
Hmm.
utility, to be honest. So here's the thing about Boba Fett. You love Boba Fett. Boba Fett looks cool. I don't get the Boba Fett hype. I mean, I like him a little bit more now that Mandalorian is out and he's in it. But as it stands, I think Boba Fett is extremely overrated because he does a cool thing in this one where he kidnaps the heroes and he's badass and it's everything, but he barely does anything. Even in the next one, he also barely does anything. Like he's even worse in the next one.
I'm more upset with what happened to him in Return of the Jedi than I think he did enough in this movie to where like he was still mysterious, and he was always like one leg up from the heroes.
To me, it's like one
He
of those
got them where he
characters.
wanted them.
Yeah, but it's one of those characters where it's like
I still
popularity.
wanted more from him, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I thought he was so cool.
The popularity around him, I think it's more to do with the fact that he looks cool and he's badass and
He's mysterious. He's
But I
based
love,
on
yeah, I think
a man with
to
no
me
name.
that character, like the cool character that looks cool, but it's not really a character. It's Darth Maul in Phantom Menace.
Oh my god.
I think that one is way more like effective as a non-character making an impression because
I mean, he does like Darth Maul does more, but Boba to
yeah,
me is still something about the original
they're
trilogy.
both hunters
The
though.
way, yeah, but the way characters are displayed, I guess, is the sense in the original trilogy has just so much more of a profound impact on me. And maybe it's because I've seen those first and I grew up with them more like than the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I just remember even as a kid, I loved having the Boba Fett toy. Like I was like, this is my favorite fucking action figure. you know,
Also,
it's just
yeah,
it's just cool.
fun fact about Boba Fett's appearance in this movie as well is it was also changed in the special edition, whereas in the original it was a different voice actor. And in the special edition, due to the prequels and the fact that we learned that Boba Fett is a clone, they changed his voice
To Tamara Morrison.
to Tamara Morrison, who plays Boba Fett's father, or donor, as you might say, Jango Fett. So it would be the same voice as Django, and it makes sense. I like that change because I think it adds continuity to it.
That's one of the changes I'm very glad that they did.
Although I must say I do really love the voice
The
of the
original
original.
was sick.
He was like, he's not
It
good to me, Dad. He was he was he was a little bit more. He sounded more aggressive.
put
Like
Captain Solo in the cargo.
yeah, exactly. He had that like a growl, a little bit more of a
Tamara
growl.
Morrison's just more like as you wish.
Yeah, he was more. I felt like he was just playing another clone. To be honest, I mean it's fine. It's not horror. It's not a bad performance, but it's whatever. Anyways, so Boba Fett is sent to track them down. He tracks them down. So okay. So the heroes go to. They need to escape. Where do they escape? Han is looking for planets, and he finds Lando. He's like, I don't know that
Lando
system.
system? Lando's not a system, he's a
He's a
man.
man. Exactly. If you,
Lando Calrissian.
yeah, if you see in Solo, all these pieces start coming together.
Fuck Solo.
Well, there we go. And so we get him start going to the Cloud City, which is where Lando is, and we get this great moment. I love this moment when he's trying to like land in Cloud City, and the cops aren't letting him. He's like, "Do not stray from your current course." And he's like, I thought you were friends with this person, with Lando. Why won't they let us land? And the Chewie says like, "Rrr." And then Han looks at him. He's like, well, I'm sure he's forgotten about that. It's been a long time. I love that little moment where they imply that there's a moment when Han was shitty to Lando, and and we don't hear what it is because Chewie said it. Um, so he lands, and we find Lando. He's like a double crosser because he was acting pissed, and he wasn't. Even though I guess he was just scared. And how you doing, you old pirate? So good to see you. We find out that Lando owned the Falcon beforehand.
Yep.
It rounds out a little bit of Han's backstory. And what is it? What is it? You know, what is it? What happened between them? Remember, you lost her to be fair and square.
Hmm.
So, Lando is a great character. Lando was introduced, I think, mainly because they didn't know if they were going to get Harrison Ford in the next one. And I think Lando was sort of kind of a replacement for Han in case Harrison wasn't around,
That
which
would
is
have been lame.
another of the reasons why he got frozen in carbonite is because they were like, worst case scenario, we just write him out of the movie.
Yeah.
So they froze him on carbonite for that reason. Well, we're jumping a little bit, but we find out Lando's a traitor. Oh no, he's
He had his reasons.
yeah,
He wasn't a bad guy. He's
yeah.
just
Sometimes people talk about how Lando was I think Billy D talks about this. I think it's funny. The actor who plays Lando, Billy D
yeah.
Williams, talks about how kids come up to him. He's like, "Why did you betray Han Solo?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "It's a movie." he finds himself explaining fictional behavior to like people. He's like,
Yeah.
no, because Darth Vader was, had him under his grip and whatever. But yeah, we get Vader. And there's must be a really awkward dinner when Vader he's like,
I
we
wish we got to
water and
see
food.
more of that scene. I really wish.
Have you seen
It's like
the robot
it's
chicken
like
sketch about of that scene
yeah.
when they're having dinner? So funny.
I love the meme though. It's like, man, Darth Vader just wanted to have a nice dinner with them, and
Mm,
Han just comes in blasting like an asshole, just starts
yeah,
shooting up the place.
yeah. So Han gets. We haven't talked about this, but Han is like running away from a price on his head, for even from like after the first one. Like
Yeah,
Han
I
is running
mean,
away from
since the
Jabba,
very beginning, he's been owing
the whole
Jabba this
trilogy.
debt.
So when Darth Vader is torturing Han in order to lure Luke in, he tells Boba Fett like, you can take Han Solo to Jabba the Hutt after I've had Skywalker. So they're already setting up the sequel, and it's a great little like world building moment because you don't know. Well, if you've seen the special editions, you do know what Jabba looks like. But
Yep.
anyways, so Luke gets lured in. Luke comes to Cloud City. Um, they have this great fight. Well, let me not jump. Before that, Han gets frozen in carbonite. We have that great scene. I love you.
I know.
Da, 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 da. And yeah, so this moment, this "I love you," I know, wasn't in the script.
Improved by Harrison Ford.
Yeah, wasn't in the script because
It said
they
"I love
wrote,
you too" in the
yeah,
script,
"I
and
love
they
you, I
shot
love
the
you
scene
too."
over and over, and it just wasn't working. And
Yeah,
Irvin Kershner was just like, Harrison, just say something, go with your gut, just just do it. We'll roll it, and we'll see how it goes. And he said, I know, and it just worked perfectly to the character, to like who Han is.
yeah.
It fits so well, and is now probably one of the top, like maybe five most iconic lines in all of Star Wars.
Also, as far as we're concerned, if you're following the story, this might as well be Han's exit line. This could be the last we see of him. At least
Yeah.
the story is making it seem that way. So it's
Hmm.
such a great line because it encapsulates his whole character.
Han wanted them. I mean, Harrison wanted them to kill Han off. That he
Hmm.
felt like was he achieved all he could at this point, and he wanted to go out with a heroic sacrifice.
Yeah. Also, another fun fact about that is George Lucas wasn't keen on that Han Solo line. He didn't love it,
Yep.
and it was one of those things when they screened the movie for like test audiences, I think,
Yeah.
where Harrison Ford tells this story, where Harrison and George are sitting together, and the "I love you, I know" line comes on, and the crowd starts laughing, and George looks at Harrison like, "See, they're laughing," and Harrison is like, "Yeah, but there are laughs and there are laughs, you know." There are laughs
Yeah.
of like comedic laughs, and there are laughs of recognition,
Yeah.
and this is clearly like a laugh of recognition of where like, yeah, that makes total sense for that guy.
Oh my god.
It adds to the to and a moment that could have been otherwise
Irrelevant. Like
not so much irrelevant, but like way more sweet.
not memorable.
Yeah, and it does. It's not. It doesn't break it either. It's not like self-aware
Oh, it
or
didn't break it at all.
yeah. It
It
enhanced
added
it.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have that little moment, which is one of the great moments. We have Luke and Vader fight. Amazingly lit sequence when they fight, all in the
Time
dark.
out, time out, time out. Real
Yeah.
quick. To add to the badassness of Boba Fett, if you go to the
Oh
part
my
where
god.
Luke is falling into the trap of reaching the room to fight Vader, when
Oh yeah, I
Boba
know
is
what you're gonna say.
walking in the hallway with Han and Carbonite, and Luke is like around the corner, like, and he draws his pistol. You
Uh-huh.
hear the sound of the pistol. Boba immediately turns his head and notices it. Like he hears it and he knows exactly that Luke is there. And then he's just waiting around the corner and starts shooting at Luke. Like that little thing, it was just so subtle, but like adds to the coolness of Boba just a little bit because if he's able to pick up this subtle little sound of a weapon being unholstered, like he has a lot more to him than just the few appearance lets on.
Well, yeah, but you can barely see that though. You have to do like a zoom on the DVD in order to
No, you
catch.
don't. Stop it.
Well, yeah, I don't know, but it's not like in. Well, whatever. I
Go
get it.
back and
You
go
like
back
him.
and watch it.
Yeah, I know.
You
I've
get it.
seen
Yeah,
it.
I
I've
like him.
seen it. I've seen him. I've seen it. You know, remember when I first saw it? I've seen this movie a million times. The first time I saw it is when you sat me down and showed it to me on YouTube.
Are
And
you
I was,
serious?
yeah, I had never noticed the fact that he turned
Wow.
because I never thought it was important.
Because
Actually,
you
I
don't
still don't
care
think
about
it's.
Boba, but I
Yeah,
do. So
but
I
I
look at
don't know.
I dissect.
You dissect
I look
boba
at all
scenes.
these.
You
Yeah.
dissect all boba scenes, all two of them.
Especially Attack of the Clones. Yep.
Yep.
Sure.
Well, I love Django. Django is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I think Django's cool. I think Boba is the lesser one.
I
But
mean,
anyway.
Django is technically Boba.
Well, but no, not really. There's different people.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
but they're also the same person.
yeah, yes and no. Yes and no. You could say all the clones are the same, but they're all different. You know
At
what I
least
mean?
Boba
There's
was unaltered.
yeah, yeah, I guess.
All right, so the Luke and Vader fight.
Yeah, Luke and Vader are fighting. It's amazingly lit. There are a little bit of what? There's a bit of trash talk when he's like, "You're not a Jedi yet," and then he's like, "You'll find I'm full of surprises," and like all too easy when the moment Vader tries to freeze Skywalker to take him to the Emperor, and then Luke force jumps. The first time we've seen the force jump like in full glory.
Wait, my favorite shot I think in all of Star Wars is in
Hmm.
that scene. The when Vader says, "But you're not a Jedi yet," that
Hmm.
shot of Vader as just a silhouette
Yeah.
with the orange and blue
Hmm.
lights.
Hmm.
Oh my god, it is just so beautiful. And then Luke just walks up into the shadow and then ignites his lightsaber and then you just see the slow red lightsaber just coming out. Like it's
Yeah.
just so beautiful.
I love the. I
It
love
still gives me goosebumps.
that thing you said. The slow lights red lightsaber.
Yeah,
That's the shit.
that's the key.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
the key.
goosebumps moment.
If we get the lightsaber working, then what is it? That's the key. That's the Jar Jar. Whatever. Uh, we get to the fight. Luke is getting his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
Vader is clearly in control. And this last moment when Vader gets pissed. Also, like, if any Toy Story 2 fans, you can tell there's a lot of stuff in the opening of Toy Story 2 that was drawn from this movie. I mean,
Mhm.
even later with the I Am Your Father. So we get to this, the great plot twist of all time. Now, the story behind this is a great story, by the way. Um, Nobody knew in the set, in the production. The actors didn't know. Nobody knew. It wasn't on the script. The fact that Vader said, "I am your father."
Hmm.
What said in the script was, "Obi-Wan
Obi-Wan
killed your
killed your
father."
father.
Right. So that was the script that everyone read, and that was the thing that even the actor inside Vader's costume, David Prowse,
Yep.
didn't know what he was actually saying. He actually
Yeah.
said the line, "Obi-Wan killed your father," inside the suit. So the story, as Mark Hamill tells it, is he gets taken into Irvin Kershner's trailer dressing room, and George Lucas was in there, I think, and he tells Mark Hamill, "So I'm gonna tell you something. I know, George Lucas knows, and when I tell you, you'll know too. So if it leaks, we'll know it was you." So he was like, "What? And he's like, "This is the line we're doing." And then he read it, "I am your father." And then Mark Hamill was like, "Wait, is this true?" So he's already in character. And he's like, "We're gonna play it like it's true."
It's amazing, man. Like,
So the only person that knew this was Mark Hamill in the cast. I mean,
hmm
and in the production, only like the really tight group of people. And so when David Prowse, the actor inside Vader, says Obi-Wan killed your father, what Mark Hamill is reacting to, what he's acting, is him reacting to a different thing that Vader said.
hmm
And it's a great thing because a lot of actors feed off of the energy of the other. They like a lot of their work is better when the other actor like bounces the ball back and forth. But he had to react a way bigger reaction because he knew that he what he was being told wasn't what the actor was saying, which is crazy. It's mind-boggling when you think
it's
about it.
also a little weird. Like, if you think about it, if the line was actually Obi-Wan killed your father, and Luke says that's not true, that's impossible, and Vader says search your feelings, you know it to be true. Why would he know that to be true? Like,
Well, that maybe that line wasn't in there either.
maybe,
Like maybe that
but
was just added later.
if yeah, if there was another line instead of that,
Yeah, I
but
guess. But so
either
so
way,
it's just the great movie plot twist. And
the greatest movie plot twist of all time.
it's great also in I think in great part not only because the movie is great and it comes at the end, but because you've been living with the fact that Vader is Vader, the killer of Anakin Skywalker, for 3 years when this movie came out.
Hmm.
You already thought of Vader as the great icon of villainy.
Yep,
So this this twist at the end of the second movie changes recontextualizes everything about
everything.
that movie and the previous one.
Hmm.
And it's crazy when you think about how it's so earth shattering and
And it was so earth shattering that people thought he was lying,
mhm,
and they had to reiterate in Return of the Jedi. They had to have Yoda confirm
yeah,
that he was actually his father
mhm,
to alleviate that, because
mhm,
people thought that he was lying.
yeah, exactly. And it's great. That's a great reaction from Mark, I think,
Yeah,
because he plays it completely
he
straight.
played it great. Oh man, yeah.
And so Luke jumps. He's like, "Join me." Vader is like, "Join me,
He
and we'll
jumps
together
down
we'll
a
rule the galaxy."
bottomless pit, like,
Yeah. So
to
there's a
get
clear
away from this
connotation,
guy.
even though they never say it. Is I'd rather die. It's like his last
Yep.
fu, his middle
Mhm.
finger to Vader, where he's like, "I'd rather die than join you."
Mhm.
And he gets sucked into a event. I always thought as a kid that was weird. Like, how did he survive? Like, what is there like an air current that he
I
gets
think it
sucked
was an air
into?
current. Yeah.
But it's funny because they never really explain it. I buy
Explain
into
it.
it. I think it's fine. But as a kid, I was always like, that's one of the things that I was like, that's a little bit convenient.
Oh, so that you'll think about, but you won't think about like where they land on the planets.
Of course, I mean, he throws himself down into a bottomless pit. Then suddenly, the bottomless pit conveniently had like suction points around that
No,
had him
but
like he
but
wasn't
the best
trying
part,
to go into one of those
he
tubes.
lands he lands in so he jumps down the pit and he lands in one of those air ducts, and you're like, "Oh, he's all right." And then it's just
Oh
like,
yeah,
"Nope." And then the thing releases and he just gets sucked out.
it's just like shit on top of shit.
Yeah. Yep.
Then he gets released, and then he falls even further down, and
And
he's
then
just
he's just
hanging
screwed
from
cuz there's nowhere to go.
he's hanging from his thing, and he's
And
trying to
that was
contact
the
Ben.
cool little tease of Leia being his sister, to where
Right.
they have this connection.
Well, something we overlooked earlier is when Luke leaves Yoda to go save his friends.
There is
Um,
another.
there's a moment, yeah, exactly. When Yoda says there is another,
As far
basically
as
saying there's
when
another
Ben says
hero.
there's no, he was our last hope.
Yeah, he says there is another hope.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that was an enigma as well. As a kid, you were like, who is that?
Hmm.
Who's that other? And you don't find it out in this movie. But this
But
is the one
also,
indication that it might be Leia,
yeah.
and they start connecting through the Force. But even as a kid, I wasn't like, oh, that means they're brother and sister. To me, that was only like Luke is reaching out to her through the Force, and I felt like that was more him doing it than her participating in the Force aspect of it. But when you look at it back, knowing that they're brother and sister, and she was also Force sensitive, it makes sense that she was the one who received that message.
Yep.
So yeah, we get this moment. Luke gets rescued. Leia kisses him again.
I mean, it was more like a
Breathing next to him,
feeling
really close to
bad
him,
kind of kiss. No,
like a
it's
pity
just
kiss. You're
like
saying?
a, not like a pity kiss, but like a she cares for him and he's hurt kind of
Yeah,
kiss.
yeah. But yeah, so that's the thing. And Luke starts skyping with Vader again and tells him, "Father, are you there?" Right away, he starts
Luke,
calling him father. Yeah,
Luke,
you didn't notice
turn
that?
give
Luke
yourself
is the
to
one
the
that calls
dark
him father
side.
before Vader calls him son.
Yeah,
So he gets a robotic. So they escape, and Vader exits the movie the same way that he entered it. It's just walking down a corridor, and all his like officials looking up to him, like, "Fuck, is he gonna choke us?" And he just kind of looks at the window. He's like, "I'll get him at some point," and just walks back. And we get that moment. Luke's got his hand. Lando wears Han's clothes for some reason in the Falcon. We get the final shot is them looking into the supernova and the like going down into the ship, the space shot of the rebel fleet, and them going on a mission to rescue Han on Tatooine, as Luke says.
listen, I don't know what. All right, we can't talk about our rankings as far as like we're gonna do that at the very end of all these
Okay,
episodes of the episodic what we rank the movies. But overall thoughts on Empire
I think
briefly.
Empire. So here's the thing: everyone loves Empire. Empire is everyone's favorite. It's not my favorite. I think it's perfect from beginning to end for the most part. I think like there's nothing I challenge creatively. I just think the other movies are more fun. I think A New Hope is more fun. It has a lighter tone, and I think Return of the Jedi is more fun, and some of the other movies are more fun. But we're talking about the main three because they're the ones that are up there in the ranking, really.
Empire isn't your favorite?
No, I think Return of the Jedi is probably my favorite. But we'll get to that.
Really?
Yeah, because I think
Interesting.
I think Return of the Jedi helps Empire into seeming like it's better than it is. When you know the nuance of Vader and his turn,
I
I
mean,
think
that is the greatest part about Return is like
yeah,
the father son dynamic and that whole story. You know, the battle with the with the Emperor and Han and or I mean Luke and Vader. Just the excellence of those scenes
yeah.
really make that a better movie compared
I
to the
think
rest of it.
Return of the Jedi helps Empire look better.
It definitely does enhance Empire for
Yeah.
the Darth Vader moments with
So
Luke.
I think Empire gets a lot of the credit that really belongs to Return of the Jedi because
I
I
just
think
think
a
as
lot
an
of the
I just
catharsis. I'm
think
not
as
saying
an
Empire is bad, by the
overall,
way. Yeah,
no, of
I
course
just
not.
think it's
I
excellent.
just I think as an overall film compared to all the other Star Wars films, Empire is the most complete
It's probably what
in my
the
eyes.
best the best acted, well, of the originals. Definitely the best acted, the best directed, like with the actors. It's
Yeah.
more elegant than the other two. The way it's shot, there's no denying. But I think I like the more the lighter stuff in Star Wars, and even though this one has a lot of that Flash Gordon adventure stuff, which is great, I think Empire, it's a little bit darker, it's a little bit weirder. Not necessarily like if I have to watch a New Hope or Empire, I'd probably watch A New Hope because I think remember we said last time A New Hope you could watch A New Hope and not watch any other Star Wars movie and you'd be
Mhm.
fine because it encapsulates everything that
Yeah,
Star Wars is. I don't think Empire has that over A New Hope.
it
I think
doesn't.
it's not a complete meal. I mean it is a complete meal, but it doesn't have an ending. You know, it's the middle of
It's a
the
middle
bridge.
movie, you know? It's
Exactly.
the perfect kind of middle movie.
Exactly.
It leaves you wanting more. It gives you a lot to go off of from the first one. So much more character building and story building. It's just it's an overall complete package, I think.
I think it's mainly because it's way more character driven than the first one. I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one of the great things people like to think
Yeah.
about Empire that way.
Mhm.
What do you think? Is it your favorite? Number one?
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
I would say my numbers, like my order, has changed for sure
Mhm.
of like the episodic Star Wars films in recent times.
Mhm.
But we'll get into that later. But Empire is still my number one.
Mm. Okay. I mean, I'm saying Empire is still my probably my top five for sure.
Top
Still my
five? I'd hope
yeah for
so.
sure. For no for
Jesus,
sure for sure it's in
Jesus,
the top five. But
Jesus.
I don't like look at it the way a lot of people do, where it's like unquestionably the best one. I mean
I mean, I
I
think
understand
there's
that
some
because the
debate you
craft
can have, you know.
yeah because the craft is like second to none and but the as me as a fan of the all of the Star Wars, not my favorite one. You know, not my
Okay,
number one.
all right,
Is that okay with you?
that's fair.
All
Everyone has their own opinion,
right, great shit.
but if it's
Remember,
the Last Jedi, you're wrong.
well, we'll get to that in a couple episodes.
Oh God.
All right, you want to bring us out?
All right. Yep. So this has been a great eventful episode. I think. Where are we at in time? Probably.
An hour and 30 minutes, but I'll
Jesus
probably
Christ.
like I'll edit it
You
down
know
for
what?
sure.
This was a good discussion though,
I like
and
this one the best of our
I
episodes.
honestly do too because we hit all the right notes of as far as you know, we weren't too heavy into one subject. We kind of
Mhm.
like hit everything, you know.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I really like this one, and I look forward to us talking about Return of the Jedi. There's a lot of stuff to go over, and it's gonna be good, and we'll continue doing this.
yeah,
So we would just like to say, may the force be with you,
always.
and we'll see you next time.
Dank Farrik.